Hello again, whiskey friends. Hey, thanks for joining everybody. And man, did you put me to task? So, the one thing that we do on Tuesdays is we do invite community generated content in terms of questions or comments that we are getting from YouTube, Instagram, and Patreon. And we've done a couple iterations in a series now where we provided alternative pours to some expensive or very allocated pours. And one of them that kept coming up in the comments was E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. So we're going to go tubing today, this time in the green tube, and we are going to break down alternatives to the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. But I'll tell you what, this was the most challenging of these videos yet, and I walked away from the whole exercise having a different respect from this pour than I had going in. So we're going to highlight what I'm talking about with the alternatives and then why I respected this bottle even more after doing this. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. So with the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, what we are talking about here when we are looking for alternatives, the thing that I like to do when I do these alternative videos is actually think about the characteristics of the whiskey and really try to break it down to come up with something then that matches it, either in terms of proof, profile, cheaper price, something like that. But man, did that prove hard on this particular pour. So the profiles that I was looking for, first, it's got to be high octane. It's going to be barrel proof. And this one is 129.7 proof. Most of them are around 130 proof. So you're looking for something with a bit of oomph. And with that high proof also comes that amazing decadent mouthfeel. This mouthfeel is near perfect on this pour. Then for the flavors, one thing that then stuck out to me was the age. So we aren't talking about something that's too old. Maybe 8 years, 9 year type of profile. Talking about a bourbon that is right on the cusp of getting any oak flavors, but instead they took it out at its peak time to just be like maximum bourbon flavors. So just rich caramel, rich butterscotch, a lot of vanilla, some chocolate coming at you. And then just like Buffalo Trace typically has, you got that cherry, but I think because of the maturity of it, it even turns into just a straight grape concentrate. But still lacks the oak presence of something like an Eagle Rare 10 year, and it's got that higher proof as well. So that's where it becomes difficult to find this profile. And I did grade this out on the scoring system as well. This particular batch I did grade out at an 89. So also looking for something that, man, it must like really, really be good bourbon to be an alternative to this as well. So I'm going to take a sip of this one. Man, just a little sip there. Always mystified by how deep, dark, man, that grape is, that concentrated grape. Even the finish on this one almost comes across as one of those chocolate covered acai candies, if you know what I'm talking about. Oh man, that's really good. So the other thing I got to say right off the top of this is, yeah, we're doing alternatives to E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, but we could just as easily remix this video and call it a alternatives to Stag. So Stag fits the profile almost the exact same as the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. I have put different Stag batches up against different E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof batches in blinds, and the Stag has actually typically won that battle more often than not. So if we are sitting there in the funny market on secondary, and you've got an E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof you haven't opened, gosh, I think you could get two of these for the price of one of those E.H. Taylor Barrel Proofs. Not that I'm recommending any secondary shenanigans whatsoever, but just floating it out there. So not saying for the purpose of this video that Stag is an alternative to E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, but it's almost literally the exact same thing as E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. So let's get into the alternatives. The first one I'm going to highlight, I actually debated whether to put on the list whatsoever because it doesn't fit all of the criteria I put in front of myself. but I really couldn't find a better alternative. But I'm going to go with the Russell's Reserve Barrel Proof Picks. So these are only 110 proof. So they don't have that same flavor punch. In a blind, I don't think that this would battle the E.H. Taylor, but it does have that near perfect age, sitting there sometimes at 9 years. I might be looking for a pick around 9 years. The cherry can really come through on a lot of these Russell picks. And that's why I think it is a good alternative, more for that flavor profile, especially if you're looking for the cherry. But once again, doesn't entirely fit what I'm looking for in terms of the viscous, the mouthfeel, the proof, all those type of things. The next one I'm going to highlight, man, a whole lot of caveats on this one too. But I'm going to highlight the bottle of Backbone that I have here, particularly because it's 122.8 proof. But I don't know. I'm highlighting the Backbone. We could talk about other MGP single barrels or other MGP blends. But the thing you got to keep in mind when it comes to the MGP, especially some of the 8-year, 9-year ones that I've seen this year, is the fact that they're typically lower proof. You're talking about something that could be 105 to 112 proof. The proof isn't over the top. And then the flavors aren't necessarily there either in terms of having those fruit flavors in the same way. Now, every once in a while, like this one that I'm holding in my hands, does have a darker beyond its years profile where you can find some that are 7, 8 years that just feel older. They may not have necessarily what I'm calling the oak flavors, but there's just this dark denseness in them. And sometimes there can be some cherry that comes through, maybe just some blueberries, maybe some berries in general, but you can get the fruits to come through on them. But even then, still, most of them are lower proof. So I'm fudging it a little bit there with that. Going into my next one, and this one is going to be dependent on the batch, but I am going to throw out there the Woodford Batch Proof. I know this one can be a bit divisive, but some of these batches really, really are good. I haven't had the latest one yet, but I have heard people raving about that one. But then you're talking about something, once again, that's kind of in that, maybe that sweet spot in terms of being a bourbon aged to the point where it's not quite oaky yet, but it's got all those rich bourbon flavors, and it's got some fruits that are punching through, and it's got the viscosity, it's got the mouthfeel, it's got the octane. So it checks a whole lot of the boxes. But technically, this one was what, 120, 150 now? What is this one, 120 now? I haven't bought one in a while. So the price is a bit more, at least to the lottery E.H. Taylor, if you happen to be getting it MSRP. And that one is the most expensive one on the list. The next one, once again, I was a bit divisive on this one too, but I'm going to flash it up anyway. An Elijah Craig single barrel. This is one that was 8 years old. It's going to have that octane. It's going to have that mouthfeel. The profile is going to be a bit different, though. Some people might be put off by the nuttiness versus the more inviting flavors of Buffalo Trace and all the candy bar sweetness and all those rich, all those rich fruits. But some of the Elijah Craigs really, really do hit with an impressive experience and just something to keep an eye out on. I didn't put the E.H. Taylor barrel proof, the batches into this because that oak profile, again, is something that I am disqualifying from being an alternative to E.H. Taylor. I'm trying to find something that doesn't have that oak profile and make it more inviting to a more general set of people. And that oak can be a turnoff. The last one, and I think this one is actually the one that would probably have the best chance of going toe to toe with E.H. Taylor in a blind. And that is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. So once again, we're definitely going to have the octane here, definitely going to have the mouthfeel at that 130 proof. The fruits on it, of course, are going to be much different. We're going to talk about a banana majority of the time. Sometimes you can get one that is a little off profile and maybe gives you some berry sweetness, but for the most part, you are diving into the banana nut bread, the banana Fosters type of a situation. So those are 5 alternatives to E.H. Taylor barrel proof. And in the end, you can kind of summarize these as being barrel proof offerings of the various heritage distillers, if you want to consider MGP in that same class. But I think they've been around long enough. We got Wild Turkey with the Russells. We got the MGP, which is General Single Barrels. We got the Woodford Batch Proof. We got the Elijah Craig coming out of Heaven Hill. And then you got Jack Daniels. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? I went through everything that I had, and I could really only come up with alternatives that were amongst the heritage bourbon whiskey distillers in America. And I think the reason for that is a lot of the up and coming brands just don't have the stocks yet to release sometimes these 8-year, 9-year entries of their whiskeys. Take New Riff, for example. I've seen the label, at least on the internets, but I haven't seen them release an 8-year, 9-year yet, even though mathematically I think they should be able to by now. Haven't seen them do it. And even if they did do it, you're still talking about a profile that I don't think is going to have the same type of range as the Taylor Barrel Proof, nor is it going to have probably that viscosity or the proof. And a lot of the more craft distillers and or just younger distillers, depending on how you want to classify them, do lower entry proofs or release lower barrel proof whiskeys. So that's another thing that got really interesting with me, and it got into my head quite a bit. One of them that maybe could be a good alternative to Taylor, pending where the profile goes when it is of age, is the Frey Ranch. So that's one where I disqualified it because, yeah, it's got the octane. Yeah, it can have the fruit flavors, but it still can have that farminess, that graininess that's going to be a turnoff to some people. I don't think it's a good alternative to Taylor, but man, maybe in the future, maybe that's one that does have potential. So, thinking about the Taylor Barrel Proof, in conclusion, it is a hard whiskey to replace, and thus my newfound respect for this whiskey. I think it's easy to dismiss sometimes Buffalo Trace and the things that they do just because, it's just easy to make fun of them and people being in line, and I'm not going to deal with that, and I'm not going to play the secondary game, and thus I'm not really playing the Buffalo Trace game at all. The only way I'm going to come across this particular bottle again is to get it in a lottery like I did the first time. And it has been a few years since I got this one in a lottery. So that's the only way I'm going to get this one. So that's where these alternatives do come into play. If you are unable to try this whiskey, to buy this whiskey, to get lucky in a lottery, hey, don't worry. You can find all of the alternatives that I just put in there. And when it comes to our scoring system, you can go through all of our prior reviews. You're going to find these brands and versions of these whiskeys that are going to score between an 86 to an 89 and thus be comparable when it comes to the experience, though maybe not outright that exact flavor profile. Buffalo Trace does do it right with this particular pour, I have to admit. Well, let me know in the comments. Is there something that I'm missing here? Can you think of something that is a good alternative to Taylor Barrel Proof that I didn't highlight on this video? Keeping in mind the criteria that I have, looking for something that is barrel proof, high proof, viscous. It's got those rich bourbon flavors. Like I'm talking over the top rich bourbon flavors on top of some fruits as well. Nice long finish. Man, just a really, really good experience. I'm looking for something like that. So let me know in the comments what you think would be a good alternative to this if you've got different thoughts than what I highlighted here. And if you've got any other bottles you would like to see me do in this format, put it in the comments as well. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. I'll catch you on the next Tuesday discussion. Goodbye, everybody.